Welcome to Seizing Valor, where we discover God's path for manhood, one conversation at a time. I'm Zack.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Joe.
And I'm in a new apartment.
Yeah, that's right.
I am in new locale, new background for all of you watchers. A little bit more exciting, I guess, maybe, depending on what your opinion is of my decorating.
But yeah, I mean, we see a clock and some looks like some paintings and
some
top of a couch.
Paintings, maybe not paintings, posters. More
I see
like
a ceiling.
Posters.
A ceiling got some
posters and frames because
I think the last background was just the white wall, right? Or a yellow wall.
It's like a off-white, I think. So I'm no paint expert, but it does look freshly painted.
Eggshell white.
There you go.
Eggshell. Off eggshell opaque white.
It's opaque.
No. There's somebody there?
No, I'm just making sure my washer and dryer is still functioning correctly.
I'm so surprised that we can't hear it at all. I'm very.
I know.
Yeah, I thought we
There's
would
like
be
no
able to,
covering to it, so it's like literally just in the hallway there.
I would have thought that they came alive or something. Those two appliances.
Well, I mean, for our listeners here, I was just telling these two gentlemen about how I had problems with both of these things. So when I first moved in, I wanted to test everything because actually they make you do that. They like give you a paper and it's like you have to test and document everything to make sure that it matches up when you leave. So, so I have to test everything, and I get to the dryer and I turn it on, and literally like I just feel hot air like rush at me, and like a bunch of dust bunnies just like come out of the ground. It's like the great resurrection of the dust bunnies. They're like flying towards heaven, and I'm like, that can't be good. So I stop the dryer, and I'm like, there's literally the venting out of the dryer is like going everywhere. So look back there and discover the venting is not properly hooked up. It's not even hooked up at all. The tube is not connected to the dryer. So the dryer was literally just blowing the air, was blasting off the back wall, and it was coming out. So I had to get a service request because the way it's situated, I didn't feel comfortable like pulling it out and then possibly like dinging things and all that stuff. So I had them come in, hook that back up. I also told them it probably needs to be cleaned because it didn't smelled like, burning dust and stuff. So, but anyway, so then I tried to use it today for the first time. It works perfect. But then what I realized after I put everything in the washer, I took everything out of the washer, and I was supposed to have washed it on cold. And when I was done taking it out, I'm like, this stuff feels really warm. So after a few tests of like turning things on and off and unhooking like the hot and cold spigot, or like turning or like loosening and tightening the hot and cold spigots, I found out that they were reversed. So like when I pressed the cold function and I kind of like poked open the lid and like felt the water, it was like burning hot. And then I did the opposite. I switched it to hot and it was cold. So the things were switched. So I had to like carefully unscrew and switch them without all the water like spewing. Well, I had to tighten the thing, like turn off the water first, and then hopefully that the water in the tubes wasn't going to like fall out everywhere. So I'd be very careful and like pulling like the Indiana Jones switch there. And luckily I did. So that's my adventure, new apartment. But anyway, that also comes up because I think they unhooked everything when they painted and they just didn't hook it up again correctly.
Properly. That sounds miserable. That sounds miserable, man.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. Making me feel like a man.
It could have been worse. Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say I love that type of stuff. I love doing that kind of work. I think it's so fun.
Yeah. I wish that's the thing about apartment living is like you feel like you can't do as much of that.
Yeah.
Of like it's like, oh no, there's something broken. I have to tell them to fix it, or I could get in trouble if I fix it wrong. And
Right.
So
yeah, and I guess that is the nice thing about owning the home is like, I can do anything. I can knock down walls, I can paint stuff, I can put walls up, I can change whatever and do whatever. And by the same token, I have to front everything, right? So it's all at my expense.
So yeah, that is, even though in the past, and I hope nobody that has rented me an apartment before is listening to this, but in the past, I have taken it upon myself to do like very minor things. So like I fixed like the sink the one time where like there was like a leaky sink. I took it upon myself to fix it. I fixed it right, but I would never take like big leaps of like I'm gonna replace this whole thing or I'm gonna like do this. So yeah.
A lot of those contracts say that you can't anyways.
Yeah. So don't want to get in trouble because this is a nice apartment.
Yeah.
So
from the tour that you gave us, you're pretty stacked.
Yes. Sorry, people of the podcast. I will not be giving you the grand tour because I do want parts of my life to be private. So you can just see the living room. So there it is behind me.
This is the public space.
There's a vacuum standing up behind me. Proof that I clean. So
nice. And then you started your new job, right? Right.
Yes. Yes, I did. So first day as director of youth and young adult ministry, Diocese of Harrisburg. So I'm excited. I'm a director. That's crazy. But it was a great first day. It really was. It was long. It was the typical first day. The let's take a tour of the building and meet everybody. Everyone kept telling me there's going to be a quiz at the end. There's going to be a quiz at the end. And I'm like, oh boy. A lot of people, a lot of nice people, and didn't get to meet the bishop yet. He's out. He's in Germany, actually. He's not just out of town. He's in Germany. So that very out of town. But yeah,
he'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah, he'll be back. I'm sure he'll be back. Red eye. I'm just getting tech stuff together. Of like, there are so many. Oh my gosh, I feel like being in work these days. There's just so many applications for working. I had to have like the email. I had to have the file sharing service. I had to have the instant messenger. I had to have we have like a scheduler / like to-do list thing that we like share. So I had to do that. I had to do and then like getting my credentials to actually log into the computer. Figuring out how to do stuff with like remote work. Like there's just so much, which obviously is great. Technology is fantastic, but it just feels like there are just so many things. But I'm sure once I master them, I will be like, this all is great. It's just right now I'm not. It's like, oh, this is a lot. But yeah, and I also got to, as I said, I got to meet a lot of people. Got to meet some people in my department. Had a really good chat with one of my fellow workers. His name is Adam, so he's more in charge of the family ministry stuff. So really good dude, like really like salt of the earth, like God-centered man. And we had a really good chat and he's pretty new too, and just about where we want to go and what our visions are, and just kind of about our personal lives. And he told me about his story, which I will not share here because it's his story to tell, not mine. But yeah, so he's just overall really good dude. He knows we have a podcast. So Adam, if you're listening, this is a shout out. And just really excited about going forward. Still getting used to going back to the 9-to-5 life and everything that goes along with that, and waking up early and being scheduled and regimented, and trying to get in good habits, trying to get up, trying to pray, and trying to figure out what I'm doing with my evenings. That is literally the other thing, is I'm looking into all these activities and stuff I could be doing, both church-oriented, sports-oriented, like all this stuff. There's just so many things, and for some reason, everybody likes doing stuff on Tuesday and Thursdays, and no one likes doing anything on Mondays and Wednesdays. So I'm like, why can't we just have things spread out a little bit more? But overall, I'm really excited. I'm really pumped. So that's kind of been my first day experience. So what about you guys? So who wants to go next? What's your week been like? And just checking, you still can't hear that washer dryer?
No.
I am very surprised because it sounds like it's gonna come alive and attack me. But
yeah, you good, man.
Yeah, okay, good. As long as listeners, you can't hear it.
We'll have it documented.
If it does, I will beat it back. And technology ain't taking me down.
Nice.
Yeah. So who's next? What have you guys' week's been like?
Yeah, I guess I can go. So it was good. I had a nice week. Let's see. My family, we did a little picnic thing. We went to like the state park one day, which was nice because so this past summer, so every summer we make like a bucket list. I'm sure you guys saw it when you came over on our fridge. So it's like a whole list of things we want to do during the summertime. And so we were trying to knock off the rest of the list here this week. So we went to this little state park. We walked around with the kids. Then we had a picnic at the state park, which was nice. Had some like chicken sandwiches and like Twizzlers and chips and stuff like that for the kiddos, which was great. And let's see, what else have we done? We did a holy hour, which was nice. and there's actually quite a few people there, which was good. And then what else have we done? We sang at Mass. We did like a special September 11th thing, and that was really, really great. And we had some people over. I don't know. We were very active, which was good. And then today we decided we're going to try to do some more like meal prepping type stuff, which is cool because we've never really done that before. Normally what we do is we set the meals for the week like on Sunday. So we say like, okay, so this week we're going to have whatever through Monday through Friday, or pizza on Friday, whatever. We usually eat out on Sundays. But then today we decided like, why don't we just make dinner for every day today? And so we did, which was pretty cool. So we like put Bluey on for the kids, and then Claire and I, we made like 4 meals, and it took like 3 hours, but it's great because now we just have to heat it up. Yeah, now I just got to heat it up. I don't have to cook stuff, when she's working or if the kids are fussing or something. That'll be much easier to kind of do. So it's good. It's a nice little change to help the daily grind. And
so you made 4 separate meals, like 4 different kinds of meals. Because I know a lot of people do that. Like they'll make so much of one thing and then just eat it throughout the week.
I do that.
Yeah. So we made 4 separate meals because we had a lot of chicken. Because I like to like have different meals. I like food to like get excited about. So that's the thing that I do. I don't like just like a chicken breast with I like to make something cool.
Yeah.
Something I'm like excited to eat, especially if it's healthy food. Like I want to be excited to eat it. And that's the only way I'll ever eat it. So we always have to try to find like fun recipes and stuff. So we found like this fun like chicken kebab, pineapple, maple glaze, something or other. And so we did that with some rice, and then we did like a lemony pepper chicken, and then like a tomato, onion, balsamic glazed chicken, and then we had like a barbecue chicken sandwich. All right, Joe, do you want to go?
Absolutely. So my week was pretty stressful, the previous one, because I remember the previous weekend I told you guys that I basically had no time to myself, and that was kind of going into the week because I had a flash flood that I kind of had to drive through on that Monday beforehand, so that was just threw me all out of whack for the entire week. But this past weekend I had all this time to myself, play some guitar, meal prep myself, and the only downside was that I kind of pulled a muscle when I was working out, just in my back a little bit, and I was going to get like these awesome X-ray results from being at the chiropractor for the last 8 months, for certain different types of appointments that I had gone to. So I was like, oh man, like all this stuff is like I'm gonna get all these bad results. But no, it was actually a blessing in disguise, because I was gonna get all if it was bad, I would have been able to figure out like what my issue was, which I pretty much know. Like I'm starting the school year off again, and it was incredibly daunting, the amount of stuff that I had to do. And I went back to poor posture because I was in the car for like hours upon hours the previous weekend. So that was it. And it actually came out to be good results. So yeah.
Nice.
That was it. Honestly, today was a great day. I was just killing it, on fire. Because probably it has to do with my diet. My diet had always been good, but I had been eating a lot more grass-fed meat versus grain-fed meat, which has a lot more toxins in our body. So yeah, I've been eating venison, elk, and liver.
Whoa! All right, very cool.
One day I'll go into heart. I'll eat some heart if I can find it.
You just see Joe in the backyard or in the parking lot of the apartment complex, just like skinning
a bunny,
like a bunny or something. Eating its heart
raw, like Gollum.
Yeah, raw and
the rabbits.
Yeah.
Stick them in your mouth, just like wave them in front of the nearest passerby. Look what I got for you. Dude, I don't know you.
Yeah, you're like crawling on all fours, like
wearing the loincloth.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't have this guy in this complex anymore.
This guy thinks he's Gollum. All right, gents. I say let's dive in here.
Part 2. So to remind our audience what we're talking about, we are talking about the idea of rites of passage for men. Specifically, we listened to a podcast by The Art of Manliness. Who the person they interviewed, I do not remember his name, but he developed a rite of passage ceremony of sorts for his son, or a journey, so to speak, not really ceremonies, journey, because it was 6 years long, a very long ceremony. So from 13 to 19, he prepared his son with everything he thought he needed to be a good man. And then they kind of had like an ending point that will eventually, if we if we can make it through all of part 2 here, we'll talk about that at the end. So last time we just kind of talked about the whole idea of rites of passage in our culture, and or the lack of that's effect on men, and then we kind of started diving in terms of like the beginning, on which there's kind of this de-emphasis on the boy's relationship with his mother, or it's a transformation sort of, as relying mostly on the mother for nurturing, to now relying on the father for this growth into a man. And then we also talked about forming relationships in community with other men, and having a group of men around you, not just like your father. So that was a quick synopsis of our last podcast for anyone who's listened. So maybe we want to pick up there. We want to pick up from like the idea of the relationshipal aspect between men, fellowship, and both in terms of the nurturing, like the other men that were present in his life to raise him, and then also the finding of other men like him to like form a posse. That was that was a lot of me talking.
Yeah, and I think we hit up a lot of this stuff when our episode of mentors, right? The mentorships,
right,
and the importance of having that, right? So I don't know if you can, Joe, if you want to take off with that.
You need to have a mentor. That is, and actually, I think you can have mentors in multiple trades. But I think that's an important sign that you are a man once you have become a mentor for your mentee. Too, I mean, like we said in the mentor episode, you can still be a mentee even though you are a mentor for other people.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it was really important. He kind of emphasized that he tried to find somebody specific to like the stage in life that the boy was going to enter to kind of talk to him. So he didn't just so when he was going into high school, he had like a high school senior sit down with him and talk to him from that perspective. He didn't like go and find like some 40-year-old guy and be like, what was it like when you were in high school type of thing. Like there was this getting the perspective from someone that was in that stage in life. And or like going into college, get someone from college, or like, you talking, about the faith, you talk to a priest, like, so he was very specific about finding people to really talk to and, form bonds with his son and instruct him. So I thought I really appreciated that, because I think the specificity matters.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I thought that was really cool, really good thing to do, definitely.
Yeah, and this idea that one man can't be all things, and that was one thing for the dad. Like, he had to admit that, he can't be the mentor in everything, or he doesn't have the best perspective on everything. Like, he can't know everything. So it was important for him to find other men that could fill those gaps, which I think it's really important. So when you're talking about community from the adult male side, of having those other men in your life that kind of help to, fill those, especially as a dad, to like help fill those gaps. It's not just like it's like almost like you have more than just your one dad. I mean, the other people aren't actually your dad, but like, they do help raise you. Right. And you're like a more well-rounded, complete man, because you have more perspectives, you have more support, and it also is a good example to like your child, to say that you have fellowship and communion with other men, to kind of instruct. And so that's like a mirror for them.
I agree. I don't think that concept is said enough, that a man knows that other men would be helpful for his child, or somebody, like almost like it could be to a lot of men like hurting their pride if they can't do all things. You know, Clint Eastwood said it best: a man has to know his limitations. You know,
and Josh's biggest limitation right now is his Wi-Fi.
I just said Clint Eastwood said it best: a man's got to know his limitations. I think a lot, talking like father and son aspect, a lot of fathers have this sort of competition, unhealthy competition with their son, where maybe unconsciously done, they don't want to see their son be as more successful than them, which is the sign of a good father, is he wants his son to surpass him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that it does put like an unhealthy amount of pressure, especially if it's an obvious competitive spirit between dad and son, and obviously then, because then the son will recognize that and then no longer strive, no longer thrive, and no longer try to be a better guy. I think, especially if dad's not letting him, or
he doesn't want that conflict. What is he going to
do? Yeah.
So we talked about the relationships. We talked about how it started. So kind of like this nitty gritty from day to day. Like, what did this look like for this father and this son? Like the process of like what it was. I know we talked a lot about having like morning chats before they went to school. They had some traditions. I think the one that if you got up, they would watch Band of Brothers, so to speak, and then they would go out and eat meat.
Eat some meat. Yeah.
Eat some brisket. Or like stuff like that. So
well, what I love is he really leaned into like the virtues. So he would, those like morning chats that he would have with his son usually would be a topic. It would be about like courage or about whatever the other virtues, and he would hit on those. They would talk about it for a while. They would have those discussions, and then they would have a task to like accomplish or like some kind of a difficulty that they had to overcome. And so especially for courage, I remember he was talking about how he took his son to this high, like the highest like rope course or something like that.
Yeah, the ropes course. Yeah.
And so he apparently had a big fear of heights. So he said, we gotta conquer this. We gotta conquer this, because you have to put your boyish fears aside, and then now knowing that you can conquer this, that you can do anything. If you can, you fight through your fears and be courageous, and then you can do it. And I thought that was really cool to utilize that.
Yeah. There's just this good mix between like the day, those big events like that, where he's like, we're doing this thing, like, we're going to doing the ropes course and stuff like that. That was like an every once in a while type thing. But then, like, as you said, the little chats every day about just topics, like wanting to like, or virtues or things that he wanted him to know, what makes like a good man. And like, so just having these little talks with them, just having also that intentionality and like time spent, like having that, like he set this time aside, whether it was like that little time in the morning or then like on the weekend or whatever, once a month, or like whenever they did the other things, like having that intentional time. And he was intentional with it. Like, he was intentional in terms of blocking out this time, and then he had a purpose and intention within the time. And I think that was just really important, because I think that's something a lot of our youth is missing right now, or like some parent child or specifically father son relationships are missing that intentional time of just like, you think you're going to get around to it. It's like that cats in the cradle thing. You're the cats in the cradle and the silver spoon type thing. Just like you always say you're going to get around to it, and then you never do, and then all of a sudden your kid's grown up. But like having that intentional time. So what are you guys' thoughts on that?
I mean, it's everything. I mean, it's me as a father, like I see that in my own kids, right? So like the moments that I choose to be intentional are the moments that my kids are like the best, where they like, I can just tell they're growing, is when daddy's with them, when daddy's loving them, when daddy's looking them in the eyes. Like, I just know they feel my presence. Yeah, it clicks, right? And so there's definitely something to that, I think.
I can't echo it better than Josh, because for one thing, he is a dad. But from the son perspective, I wouldn't say I had that intentional, like, blotted out time. I mean, I can say that the times this is going to sound like almost weird, but after like daycare, like when I was like 5 years old, I specifically remember, my dad and I, like on my mom and dad's bed, we were just like watching TV or something like that. And even this echoed like while we were watching like Star Trek or something like that when I was in high school. Those were the intentional, but like it was haphazardly scheduled. I mean, like I was a busy kid. But I think those were the moments where things clicked. And then even like intentional time with guitar with my dad, I suppose. And that's where the communication happened, because communication is key, even between men too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
I personally, like, when I'm a father, I would want it to be blotted out times, when you can.
Yeah. And that also is based on personality. Some people can spend that intentional time without necessarily having like a regimented scheduled, like we're doing this from like 6 to 7 in the morning, like type of thing. Like some people are just better at managing that like on the fly.
It's the teacher mindset. It's the teacher mindset.
Like, but if you're a schedule oriented person, then that's kind of the way it has to be.
Yeah.
So one of the other things then that kind of comes up in this day-to-day like progress is he also made it a point to make big deals out of like milestones and accomplishments. Like I know he remembered noting about the like getting a driver's license. He noted more that it was like a missed opportunity because like his son like took the driver's test and then came home. And then he was like, "Did you pass?" And he's like, "I don't know," because like the lady who was giving him the test like really didn't like indicate to him whether he did or not. He did, but like so like what he said was it was a missed opportunity, like because when you make a big deal out of something, it gets like ingrained in the memory, like it gets ingrained, and like that's like a positive experience and stuff. So we talked about being intentional with that, of like not just any like not being like making an uproar out of just every single thing that ever happens, but like those big milestones, the big accomplishments, or if like that you do something really good, like making it intentional to praise, like, and to celebrate those moments. So I thought that was also very important, because that is like when we're growing up, like maybe not now that we're like in our late 20s, like it doesn't really matter as much, but like when you're growing up, like those things are important, I think, to like celebrate.
I think I'm realizing that as I've gotten older, is like the importance of ceremony and how we should celebrate like great events, like milestones. Because I think in my own existence, like the way that my parents kind of acted sometimes is like it was just like a regular day. Like I think about graduating, like it was a day, from moving on to one thing to the next. It was never like a big thing. And so just mentally, it's just like, I've never really been big on ceremony, but now I'm starting to realize like how we really do gotta applaud individuals for succeeding, and for accomplishing something like that. And it is a cause for celebration. And then especially just for them as a person to be proud of something that they achieved. Like, I think that's a good thing. And they should feel that and to experience that. And then to have, a father share that with their son, I think is big.
I think also just for the listener's sake, when you are a father or mother, don't be praising for the sake of praising. Obviously, a child's self-esteem is a fragile thing, but it teaches them, when you're praising for the right things, for these milestones, that they do work for their success and they're in control of it.
Yeah. And again, I see that as a dad, right? So in my kids, like I'm not going to praise every little thing that they do, because then eventually it's just empty and it means nothing to them anymore.
Write it off. Yeah.
And then so I see that in my kids, especially with cleaning. So Eli, I'm trying to get him to clean more, and he's good at it. But every now and again, he'll do like a kind of a bad job, and then like expect me to be like, oh, like, hey,
so good, man.
To be excited about it, but then I won't. And I'll kind of like take his expectation and be like, this isn't completely done, so we need to finish doing this, and you got to make sure you do a good job each time. And then when he does a good job, and then I'll celebrate him and praise him, and then it sticks with him. Like, and then next time I see him, he does a little better, and so there's something to that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And
now for the inevitable person that is saying you're manipulative or something, it's parenting.
It's teaching.
Random dude on the internet.
This is what discipline is, right? So discipline, oftentimes people think of it as like abusive or hitting your kids, when it's not. Like the discipline is education, it's teaching, it's lessons. And that's what it is. You know, I'm not going to applaud him for doing a bad job. I'm going to applaud him for doing a good job, and for him to know that like hard work is what is necessary to achieve. And like that's the lesson that I want him to get out of it. So I'm going to praise through that, you know, that experience.
Yeah, it's teaching them worldview maturity. It will like to call it. You know, what's sufficient in life in order to make you sufficient. What's really important.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And he does make note of that in the podcast. So like he's honest with his kid. And the point of the celebration is to be like, accomplishment should be praised so that you like seek accomplishment. So like milestone, like important milestones, not just like once again, every time, you know, you do anything. And he said, I was always honest with my son. It's like when he did a really good job, I told him so. And when he didn't do a good job, I told him so. Not in like a way of like, you know, that some people go too far and that they're like, you suck. But it's like, this isn't your best effort. You can do better. And that like, it encourages you to do him to do better, us to do better, people to do better.
He took his son to all these locations where like a big decision was made for him and for like his family, and I think that was incredible to like for the father to take his son like, oh, this is where I proposed to your mother, or this is where we met for the first time, this was our first date, this is where I got my first job, this was my first home, this is where I grew up. And for him to see that, to share in that, it just made like, and his whole thing was to say like there's a life outside of you, like there's a world, like there's a family history here. And it's important for you to recognize that, to see that, and to recognize that no man is an island, and that, you know, we have to live through the bigger picture.
Yeah, Josh, you were just telling me that kid, like before we even filmed this, that your son Eli loves stories. So when it involves something that is so close and dear to him, i.e. his father and mother, like, yeah.
But I like that, as Josh pointed out, like it wasn't just a story. He made it physical. They went to places. He didn't just tell the story. He said, this is real. And like, what I like is that he mentioned that he's showing his son that he's part of a legacy. Like, you know, he's part, like his family is more than just his last name. Like it's like, there are so many like men that came before him kind of setting this up like for him, like no man has, as you said, no man is an island. No man is just himself. Like he is supported and held up by all the men that came before him and his family, and you know, other people, men and women, but like in this specific instance talking about men, and that there's once again that legacy, that heritage, and I forgot about that part until you mentioned that, Josh. But,
I think that's a beautiful thing twofold, because it's humility, right? It's very humbling for you to remember like, oh, like there's so much more to my life than just me. But in the same token, it's like a reminder of how special that you are as an individual, because look at all of this that came before you to create who you are today. Like look at where I grew up, look at where my dad grew up, look where my grandfather grew up, like, and then to learn about the stories and then to see it in front of you is like such a beautiful concept and a thing that really helps you recognize the importance of you as an individual, but then also to remember that, oh, I'm not the only person in the story. I'm not the most important character, you know?
Yeah. And you don't always have to, another thing too, is for anyone listening, I know everyone's history is a little muddled. Not everybody has like the family legacy that's great, but that doesn't mean you can't like show your child, like, but you can be honest about like, you know, the parts that were not so good, because you can learn from that part. You can learn from that too. So like, you know, once again, this stage of your family tree, I don't know, like some person like way back, you can still go there and be like, okay, like this stuff with this person was troubled or rough or like that, like, but this is why, and this is what you learn from it. Because you can learn from your ancestor. You don't just get bolstered by your ancestors by their successes, but also learning from their failures. So I think that's important too, to have a complete history, and like separately, like kind of like a separate comment, but like I was really intrigued by this, because I sometimes kind of wish I like was able to visit some of these more of these spots in my family's history. Like I've been to where my dad grew up, and like in Arkansas and all that stuff, but I mean, like there are certain things, like, I mean, I know this is specifically talking about our paternal heritage, but I kind of wish like I had seen where my mom like had grown up, or like where my grandfather had grown up, or on my mom's side, or they moved around a little bit, so I didn't like necessarily get to see that, or like, you know, some of these more these places. Like I kind of wish I had that a little bit. Now I was kind of, when I was a kid, I wasn't the traveler. I was kind of, typical kid our age at that time, sitting either playing sports or playing video games. And so it's kind of hard to be like in that moment of like, yeah, I want that. But that's why it's important as like a dad to kind of like expose these things, because like as a kid you don't really know that you want it until later. But
I'm right in that same boat, Zach. I mean, if memory serves, I did see some of those spots like kind of, but luckily a couple of them were close to home. Not all of them. A lot of them were more like far away states. But I almost wish that I had seen them when I was, more up and coming, like in my teens, because I was able to retain it more had it been. So yeah, I'm right there too. Busy schedule too. Sports, video games too. So yeah.
Sports, yes. But anytime we say video games, this is like you probably could have bought down the controller for one weekend. And
mostly sports.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Yeah.
What's next?
Oh, I had a thought. Hold on, give me a second. There's one thing I did want to bring up before they come. The transition of so this is all well and good that we're like mentioning all this stuff and we're like, oh wow, this is great. But he also does mention that his son wasn't not like all on board like at every moment, that he did have a transition period kind of in the middle where he was getting like fatigued and like worn out by it, or like he was getting not necessarily bored, but just like it wasn't really invigorating him anymore. And so that he had to switch focus in the middle. The dad had to switch focus in the middle. And I don't remember all the details. It was a long podcast. There were lots of details. But I remember that the way he summarized it, at least, is that at the beginning, he was teaching him how to be a good man. But then that second half, the focus switched to becoming, I want you to become good at being a man. So like good man, good at being a man. So that was kind of more like the theory. So being a good man is kind of like the theory of like, the virtues that we talked about. And then good at being a man is kind of more the practical
application,
like going out and like the doing and like how do the tasks, like what does it mean to like fulfill what we've been talking about for the first few years. Which when you talk about the theory of education, this is like usually the best way in which to educate is you have the theory aspects and then you have the practical aspects. So like Joe, when you were becoming a teacher, you had like the theory in class and then you had like student teaching practicality.
Yeah.
So not all of us in college had that, and it's not all structured like that. But or like doctors, you learn the theory and
where you truly learn is the practical application of it. I think as we're getting older, we love to work with our hands. We love to be kinesthetic people. We love the doing, and that's where the real change can occur. I agree.
Yeah, and especially in my own profession too, with music, and you could learn music theory forever, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean worth a rip unless you pick up an instrument and start playing.
Yeah. So this was just kind of, and that it goes along with, like as he was maturing more into closer to being a man, like this idea of like wanting to go out and to do, and to like as we've talked about, this idea of like men like really embrace the nature of doing very much. And so it reinvigorated him. So that reinvigorated the son to kind of keep doubling down on that. So, and then like we also, I guess I briefly touched on it, but like there was this idea of him trying to like establish a good core group of friends too, or as the guy called them, mates, because he's from Australia, so you want your close group of mates or whatever. That was a terrible accent. But like kind of have a pack, so like have your pack. So kind of building like, and that's so important, especially when you're a kid, is to have a good, solid, quality pack of friends, especially of the same gender as you, of like having that support system around. Are we a pack, gentlemen?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. We're a wolf pack of 3, open to more. Maybe.
Depends on how many guests we have during certain weeks.
So
this is a closed group.
We'll add some more guys to our wolf pack.
Yeah, a wolf pack. First, I was one lone wolf. I was a wolf pack of 1.
Wait a second, could it be?
Yeah. So, you guys have any comments on that?
No, I think that's great. I mean, it's very important too. You know, you think about. I mean, whenever I think about like the people you should hang out with, I always think about Jesus and the apostles. Like, you know, he chose these 12
the
people.
ultimate wolf pack.
Yeah, exactly. We just we're gonna edify him and love him, and then also he was gonna like be the perfect mentor of like showing you how to live and whatever. But you know, these people they loved each other and they were there for each other and through thick and thin. I mean, they got food, they ate together, they broke bread together, they slept, they, you know, all that stuff. And through that relationship, there wasn't any. I mean, there was one example of toxicity, which we all know the story of that, but within the group, it was pretty solid, you know, and that's how it should be. You should never like put people who are adverse to you or like your close pack. Now, obviously, it's good. You should associate with everybody, especially people that disagree with you, because it can help broaden your horizons. But your best of best friends, you know, you should be of the same mind, I think.
Yeah.
It goes along with your theme of you are not a rock, you are not the island, Zach.
Yeah. We are an what is that group of islands? Like an archipelago or whatever?
Yeah.
Archipelago.
I don't know.
Archipelago.
I don't know if I'm geologically correct on that.
Yep. Archipelago.
You're not Guam. You're the Bahamas. We're gonna get that put on a T-shirt.
There we go.
So maybe okay. So getting to the latter stages now. So that was kind of like the middle, and obviously there's more to this. So everyone, we're not touching on every single thing that they talk about. So you should listen to it for yourself. If you're curious.
You can just listen to it.
Yeah. So kind of getting towards the end. So there's two like really big steps when it comes to the end of this journey. So he graduates high school, and his dad makes it a point for him to take a gap year. So I kind of want us to discuss this a little bit, because this idea of a gap year. So everyone right now, all of us included, did this, but like right now the cultural thing is to like you go straight from high school to college, like kind of almost like perpetuating that educational like mindset, or that mindset that, you know, that almost, I don't want to say institutionalized, that sounds a little radical, but like somewhere in that medium range of that. So kind of doing, not really exploring. I mean, college is exploratory. I mean, like there's a lot of things that you explore, and then you go out to new places, you live somewhat on your own, but there's like, it's still limited in its scope, because, you know, you're in this one specific area doing this one specific thing. So anyway, he made a point of his son taking a gap year, but not just like an empty gap year. Like he traveled, and did all sorts of things to kind of gain knowledge and experience. So what are you guys' thoughts?
Well, in this, we're going to be seeing more of this as the decades go on, because more and more people are starting to wake up to the idea that maybe you do not need college. And this is coming from a guy, you know, I think all three of us went from high school to college immediately. And I'm also the type of person, even in my job, to be endorsing college. Not to all students, some to community college in order to get their early credits. But anyway,
I think that should be like a discussion that we can talk about, because I think we're definitely seeing a change in our culture as pertains to college. So maybe on a different day we can discuss, you know, university and all that.
On board.
But like right now, let's just discuss on the idea of like that year as the idea. Well, okay, yeah, you're right. This is something we could expand on probably in a different podcast. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, I'll just get. Yeah. Oh, I was just gonna give my brief cliff note.
Go for it.
I honestly think that if you are considering a gap year, try to fill it with as much travel you can as possible. Not being spendthrift, of course, but yes, it will broaden your horizons, which is the ultimate goal, and to learn as many different trades as possible.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I think my initial thought of the gap year, like when I heard it for the first time, I like saw it, and I saw what the people were doing, and they were just hanging at home playing video games, you know. And I was like, really, this is your gap year? Like you're just gonna kind of do nothing?
It's waste away.
So I think it's important to have it be filled, because again, like we were talking about, you get the theory from your education, and then the practicality in the real world. And I think, you know, getting that time to really live a little bit, and especially develop more as a person, I think is huge. You know,
I don't think you should go it alone though, because you've been with, you know, your family in general terms for 18 years or so.
Well, I guess it depends on the type of person that you are.
Yeah.
You know, because if you're someone who really benefits from having more people around, then go for it. But someone like me, like I if I did do a gap year, I would rather travel by myself. Like,
yeah.
But that's just me. But
it can be done. It
Yeah.
can be done.
yeah.
So that
But
the idea of this was to like for it to be almost like the final test, so to speak, of like, well, there's like a final ceremonial thing, but like this idea is like he taught him how to be a man, and then so he pushed him out into the world and be like, all right, this is it. This is where we apply it and see what you got. Well, that was step one, to like show like, can you make it on your own? And there's like plenty of ways to take a gap year. I mean, you can do that by traveling. You can do that by like going into the world and working. Like you can do a lot of things. But then the second purpose was, as we kind of hinted on, to broaden horizons of like, kind of there's maturity by meeting different kinds of people, going to different places, experiencing different things. There's a level of humility and self-realization you kind of get from that. And people who take like gap years or come to college after working or stuff, like even if you do go to college, you're just so much more ready. You're so much more mature. You're so much more experienced. Like, like what everything means. So yeah, that was supposed to be kind of like his final practical test, as Josh was kind of saying, is like this idea is like, it was the final practical learning. It was like your final rotations as a doctor. So, and then finally,
so let's move on to the final thing.
The final go. Do you want to talk about it, Josh? Since you
go ahead.
Oh, so for anyone, okay, so the father wanted a final like sort of like a challenge, but not like the gap year was literally the final test, so to speak, but the kind of like the final jumping off point, the final ceremonial thing, and he wanted it to be something to like be accomplished, not just like a ceremony. Like there was some level of challenge to it. So they walked the Camino. So for those who have not, who don't know, the Camino is a pathway in Europe that goes mostly through Spain. That is apparently the traditional pilgrimage route of St. James as he was going through Europe into Spain. It starts kind of up more north, close to France, I believe, and then you walk about 500 miles at first you stop at Santiago de Compostela, which is where legend says that the remains of St. James are buried. And then from there, you go actually then to the coast. I don't know if it's via Portugal or still via Spain, but you go to the coast. And then there's kind of there's like a little town on the ocean where the Camino actually ends. So they did this hike on the Camino. It took them 33 days. And this is a very popular pilgrimage like walk. Like a lot of people do it. There's even a movie about it called, I think it's called The Way. It is called The Way, and it has like Emilio Estevez and Martin Sheen. It's a really good movie, actually.
Father and son.
Yes, it actually is a father and son kind of experience in a different kind of more sad way for those who are watching. But it's a good, if you want to kind of really know what the Camino is, it's kind of like a good like hinting as to like what this thing is all about. Yeah, and so that was the end. That was like they did the Camino. So yeah. Thoughts? Anybody?
I thought that was cool. That was cool. They have this giant hiking trip that, in the wilderness and the experiences within faith as well, within the concept of faith, walking the steps of the Apostle James. And it's a great way to wrap it up and send it off. It's a great ceremony.
And at the very, very end, so apparently what happened, we didn't mention this at the beginning, but there actually was kind of a ceremony at the beginning where they were at a beach in New York.
New York, yeah.
Yeah, and his son like ran into the water like at 13.
Like a baptism almost.
Yeah. And then at the end of the Camino, they're at a beach, so he like went into the water and came up to kind of represent like this, like going from America to like, this idea of going in and then coming back up and becoming a man, kind of almost like the baptism of Jesus. And then the dad apparently said he did even like the God voice of like, this is my son and with him I am well pleased, and like all that stuff. This big moment for this kid. I can't imagine what that was like, like all of that build up. It was like 6 years of build up. And just that moment must have been so. If they would have just done it like willy nilly, just like boop, there it is, it wouldn't have been anything. But like 6 years of build up for then, I can't imagine what that was like.
That's great. Yeah, After listening to this podcast, I took a ton of notes, and I'm going to try to do something very similar with my boys. And so I'm like super stoked about this concept, because I think after listening to this podcast, let's talk about ways that we can kind of like the practical things that we are going to apply in our own life, right? Or the things that we kind of learn from that. And so I think for me, I'm going to have, I don't know if it'll be 6 years worth. I mean, if I can devote myself to that, then that'd be cool. Like through his teenage years, I think that'd be awesome. But
because that's when he needs the father
the most. Exactly.
Yes.
So I know, because I'm a loving father anyway, so I'm always going to be there. I'm going to try my best to be intentional, because I feel like I'm pretty good at that. But then having it geared more towards the archetypical man, like you're a man now. This is what it means to be a man, and to have those discussions with him, growing in the virtue, seeing the reality of the family, like showing him, where Claire and I met, showing him where my dad grew up, like all this stuff, and then having that, and then having ceremony. Like I think it's just so important. So I took so much from this.
Yeah, make sure you take him to where you met Joe. That's
This is where
you're gonna have a big tour of Marywood.
I'm just gonna be exactly. It's gonna just be at Marywood, like
pretty much like a lot.
You just like knock on the quint, like from the days of old. It's like you see.
You'll spend a whole month
my son's
there,
here
Josh,
to see where the clown joke was told.
Oh yeah, we forgot to do that when we were together.
Yeah, we did forget, but
that's okay, Joe. You can come with them for that ceremony, and you can tell it there in that room, and then you can leave a plaque.
So good.
Right. And then like the movies and barbecue thing, like I'm into that. And then I think hiking is really cool, because I love to hike. Now I don't get to do it as often as I'd like to, but yeah, I think having like an end goal of like a beast to accomplish, to defeat, I think would be pretty cool. So yeah. What about you guys? What did you take away from this the most?
Truth be told, I love the idea of the stories for one thing, but also I kind of took a lot of notes on the final task. Obviously, I'm a big hiker myself. I'm a big traveler myself. Would I know what I would want to go to yet for this child? I don't yet, but that's why I have a while to go.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
You have 13 plus however many years, Joe.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But what about you, Zach?
I kind of thought from both sides. So, of course, as you guys are talking about, this is something that, if I were to be called to marriage and fatherhood, that I would definitely want to try to incorporate this stuff into like raising a son. And before, I mean, I'm going to be honest, like before, like when I would think of marriage, I'd be like, I'd actually probably not like I wouldn't want a son, but I was like, I've always like felt more natural around like girls, like in terms of like rape. I have nieces, so that's like maybe a good reason why of female like when like taking care of like female children. So I always thought it's like, oh yeah, I'd be okay with being that dad who has like 4 or 5 daughters, like. But then now after this, I'm like, oh man, I want a son. I want like multiple sons. I want to like, this is what I'm looking for. So like maybe it was because of that uncertainty sometimes of like I'm not sure if I know how to teach this kid how to be a man, and like not that I have one yet, but like this like I'm not sure, I don't feel confident in that. But after hearing something like this, I feel like more invigorated, more on fire, and more motivated. I could tackle this. I can do this, because like that's one of the things, like when you're raising the child of the opposite gender, it's a different role. It's like a different like so you have to teach them how to be loved. You don't necessarily have to teach them how to be like you. That's the weird dynamic. So like fathers to daughters and mothers to sons, like you have to teach them how to be loved and or how to love like the opposite gender. So it's like the daughter hopefully will want someone who loves her like her father, or loves her like her father loves her his wife, and stuff like that. And then like same with father or mother son. But like when you're the dad, when it's father son or mother daughter, you're not just teaching them how to be loved, but you're teaching them how to be, like, so that I feel like that's a lot of pressure,
right?
Like a lot more pressure. So that's kind of like so maybe that's why I was feeling the way I did about like
but until we found out all these ideas, like what do we know what to do? But this these
I will say too,
practical ideas.
Just jumping into it, like it's it's a lot more natural than you would think.
Yeah.
The way that I experienced it, like I don't really have this thinking about this, like being concerned about that. Obviously, I knew the importance of parenting, and especially from my role as the dad for my boys. But what I'm seeing is it comes naturally. Like they pick up on all the positive things, and they do pick up on some negative things, but not nearly as much as the positive things, which I think is incredible. So like if I work hard outside, right? If I do the lawn and I'm weeding and I'm, using the chainsaw and all this stuff, like Eli's with me and he's there and he's picking up on that work. And so, and just a regular act that I'm doing, just a chore around the house, he's with me and he's learning. And then I see him wanting to do that more so when I'm not doing it. So like if he goes outside, like he wants to do those things, like he wants to clean up, he wants to do the weeding, he wants to like play around with his lawnmower or even go into the shed and try to get stuff. And so I see that.
Lawnmower.
Yeah. So I'm like, no, get out of there.
Whoops.
But yeah, so it just comes natural because they're with you, and if you're confident in who you are, like it's gonna bleed through your children, and they're gonna see that, and it's gonna be a good thing. So. But it's natural. It's if you're a parent, like it comes to you as like an instinct. I think
as a grace from God.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but then on the other side, so speaking from the son perspective, my dad was a great dad, and I think my dad has been a fantastic example for me as a man. Now, did we have a lot of these like specific things like they mentioned there? No. But that's why there's a lot of things I kind of want to do moving forward. I want to be more intentional with my dad and like learning from my dad. And I want to be more intentional about learning more things from my dad, like the practical aspects of being a man. Like, cause I mean, we all should be open to growing like our entire lives. And no, I'm not 19. But like I feel like I want to be more intentional about that, or like more like asking my dad about certain things, trying to get some of the stuff that was talked about, because it's never too late for anyone listening. It's never too late. Like there's never a point of no return. You can always learn, you can always grow, you can always have these things if like, you just reach out, connect with your dad and like, or mom, if you're a girl, and like kind of have this type of thing. And also even just for me personally, being more intentional with some of the things that I'm doing as I'm progressing as a man. Like one of the steps, I think I briefly touched on this last time, this idea of like me living by myself now. Like I am living in an apartment for the first time on my own. And for me, that's like, I'm taking that as one of those trials, like those man trials of like, this is my step. This is like a beast to conquer. This is like a step towards maturity. And I want to treat it like that. And I want to like develop habits that kind of help with that and things like that. Being more like just simple stuff. Even it's like, I could buy a new one of these, or I could get someone else to fix it. But you know what? I'm going to try to do it. I am going to try to do this and like fix it. Like just simple stuff like that.
Right.
So just being more intentional with my relationship with my father, with my own progression as a man. And I'm not gonna lie, Joe, I was also kind of intrigued by like the final like beast to conquer type of deal. And though I got me thinking for myself almost a little bit. I sound so much more selfish than the two of you, but like I'm like, ooh, what if I did one of those things? Like if I get enough vacation time, like what if
you should honestly.
Well, Joe,
I can't stress this enough. Like when I went on my first solo trip to Montana, Wyoming, just on my own, and then even I just escalated it even further the summer after, just London a week on my own, like just trying to figure out stuff. And I'll even tell you my London where I got lost story later. Well, not recording.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking even more about like roughing it, like on the Camino, of not like getting hotels and like getting like having be a luxury trip of like
having a
doing
tent
something.
Yeah.
I was thinking, I don't know, there's something like the Camino sounds nice to try like once, not now, because obviously I had a new job, I got no vacation time and I've got no preparation, but like
leave on your second day.
Maybe. I thought even about like not the whole Appalachian Trail. The Appalachian Trail is like 2,000 miles, but like a part of like the Appalachian Trail or something for like, I know like the PA like section is like 250 miles or something. So like half the Camino. or something, just something like that. And I'd be like, I should, the old me would have been just like, I don't know, that sounds too difficult and complicated and sometimes uncomfortable. Like, but now I'm like, I should do something like that to prove that I can do it. Now, all those listeners here, please don't be disappointed if like Zack comes back like several years later and be like, yeah, that never happened. Because life happens, life happens.
You just gotta tackle it. You gotta tackle the moment in your present existence, or it's like the Cats in the Cradle song. Like life will just fly by before you know it, because it really does go by quick. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things. I wish that I did a trip. Like I wish that I took a gap year and just traveled, or like went and did, because I've had this massive dream of like just myself taking a massive road trip, just traveling and going all the way to California and back, like just to do it and to live in my car and just get nasty and like but then like live, like feel like I'm living and kind of roughing it for a bit. And then that way I can kind of grow from that. So I feel that, and I think people should have experiences like that to really find themselves, to grow, and to kind of just depart culture for a little bit, depart society, this humdrum, the hamster wheel kind of existence.
The noise kills you.
You just have to work and sleep and eat and then repeat. And like if you can break that and seek yourself, and especially with your relationship with God, like have a little bit of silence and growth and struggle, and that can really be such a beautiful thing, So seize the moment, recognize that these things are important and they matter, and break away and grow. This was a massive topic. And I'm really happy that we took 2 episodes on it, and I know these are two longer episodes. But I think this is such an incredibly important and necessary topic for us as men, and for us as fathers out there, listeners, and to really take this stuff to heart.
Yeah, I agree. It was a really good one. Thank you, Josh, for recommending for us to listen to this podcast. And for those who are listening, if you would like to listen to it, it's The Art of Manliness.
Well, it will be in the description of this video.
Yes. So we'll let you know, and you can take a listen and see what you think. And as a side note, I think we mentioned this at the top of the last episode, but he does talk briefly then about a separate thing that he did with his daughter. So like father-daughter, which was just an offshoot of his wife was doing something with her daughter, and then he just did a small portion of it. So like that is also an important relationship, and he briefly touches on that too. So
the episode is called How to Turn a Boy into a Man, from The Art of Manliness.
So what we would all like you to do right now is subscribe to Seizing Valor at YouTube. Also, like this video and hit the bell icon. It can help out with the algorithm to know when our new videos or shorts are coming out. Also, follow us at Seizing Valor on Instagram. We do put a lot of extra content on there that we want you guys to be a part of and notice. And then we are also on Spotify as well, again, at Seizing Valor. And if you guys do have any prior intentions that you guys want to keep private, or you have any private discussions, please reach out to us at seizingvalor@gmail.com. In this community of men, even if you, for one example, don't have a father, I think it's natural and it's good to hang out with other men, because that rite of passage that we were just talking about is so crucial to your growth, spiritually, emotionally, and physically as well. Join us next time, please, before our closing prayer. It's definitely appreciated.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, as always, thank you for bringing us all here today, bringing us together. So to the 3 of us that are here now, as we record, myself, Joe, and Josh, but then also everyone throughout all of time that listens to what we have to speak about, for, we are all together with them in whatever moment that they are listening, and you, of course, are with them whenever they are listening. Thank you for all of this that we learned about fathers and sons and becoming a man, and the importance of that journey. You who had a heavenly father as well as an earthly foster father, who taught you in many ways how to become the man that you became. Please bless all fathers, strengthen them in their role, help them to be intentional about spending time with their sons, forming their sons, teaching their sons, loving their sons. Help them to encourage them and help them to make them feel like men, to prepare them to be men, and help them know when it is they've become men. And please bless all sons, that they might be intentional in spending time with their fathers, learning from their fathers, observing their fathers, imitating their fathers in all the right ways, and just help them to be open and help them to be moldable to the ways in which you and their physical father are trying to form them. Help them to be strong, help them to learn, help them to be virtuous, and help them to be sure of themselves in that tumultuous time of boy to manhood, so that they may come out the other side strong men for you. And I ask for special prayers upon all men or all boys who do not have fathers, that you might send them a father figure of some sort, and that they might always know that you, their Father in heaven, will always be there, and that you are always their Father. And I also pray for all men who are without sons, whether it's they just them and their spouse are without or can't have children, or it's possibly men who have lost children, who have lost sons. I pray that you be with them. I pray that you comfort them and strengthen them, and possibly send them people their way that they can still instruct and guide, young men that they can instruct and guide, even if they aren't their direct blood. So yes, and bless all mothers and daughters in similar ways as well. And though we did not focus on them, they are important as well, both in relationships with fathers and sons, and then between each other, that they may also be blessed in the same ways. Just help us all to just grow in the ways that you have made us to grow, and to become the people you destined us to be. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah, guys. Very good.
That's a peace out. We'll see you all next week.